like topic that I'm going to do research about is like the relationship between sleep and depression in high school students, and the data that I use is the GIRE and which is like kind of collected in 2023. And first, the importance of this study is that since there's a lot of like predominant cases reported in American high schoolers of like depression and lack of sleeping time, it shows like significance of researching about the relationship between two, like which could affect the other one. And also, since there's not a lot of like studies that researched about the direct relationship between two yet, it is important to really step further on these kinds of fields. So the research question that I set up is, do high school students who have felt depressed or hopeless for at least 2 weeks have significantly shorter average sleep durations compared to those who have not? And uh, this is the variable that I actually use. Like compared to the last time, I kind of reduced some other like unnecessary variables. So the question number 26 says, in 12 months, did you ever feel so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that you stopped doing some usual activities? And the next variable is that question number 85. On average school night, how many hours of sleep do you get? And like the limitation is that it didn't actually like kind of explicitly show the number of the responses, so it is hard to like kind of know how many like like the age range of this research and like data. So regarding that, this is the data that I chose, and this is the step, like the progression of the pre-processing the data. And the first one that I use to analyze the data is the watch to sample t-test. And so this is the result that I got from the test. And the result shows that the group who responded yes responded 6.056 hours, and the group no responded 6.131 hours. So it shows like group with no experience of depression has slightly longer hours of sleeping on average. And the next one is that I tried to kind of draw the box plot with this data, and this is the box plot that come up. And the next one is the distribution, and this is the distribution of hours of sleep. And the explanation of the distribution shows that it has a shape of skew to right, with most of students tend to have like 5 to 6 hours of sleep. And this shows there are more students who sleep relatively less than a lot or an average. And this is also the other distribution, and it shows the comparison between the group yes and no distribution. And it shows that the shape of distribution are identical in both distribution, but the group yes have more numbers and the small values indicating less sleep, and whereas group no has less values on small values, indicating it had less number of students than group yes who sleep about like 4 to 6 hours. And so the overall result of the analysis of data is that the distribution and the mean time of each group, which responded either yes or no, all show that the group which experienced depression before tend to have less sleeping time. And however, the differences in sleeping time between group yes and no aren't significant, which can be worked as like some sort of like limitation. And yeah, this is the end of the presentation.
Sorry, I wanted you to share some of the previous slides. So maybe you can go back to the beginning. So you said that it was hard to calculate age. Can you go to that? So how did you determine whether or not they were students? Was there a question asking whether they were a student, or how did you determine that?
Like, we looked up for any information that kind of um say about like the age range of this data, but there wasn't like any information. So I was I was not able to find the exact like age range of the student who responded.
All right, so you don't know whether or not they're students and you don't know the exact age range, but this is a youth survey, right? So what's the maximum age that participate in this survey?
Well, like the entire T response is like about like elementary students to all high school students, but there's like not really information about which like each of the response can be like what age like that.
Okay, but you do know that they are children or adolescents, so that's good. Okay, and then can you flip through the slides slowly? You were moving rather quickly. Okay, so hold on a second. So you were asking, or the item asked, how have you experienced thoughts of depression within the past 2 weeks? Is that how it was phrased?
Yeah,
And then the sleep item was, how many hours of sleep do you get on an average night?
yeah,
Okay. And so the group with no depression slept a little better on average, but it wasn't significant. And it's still not the recommended amount of sleep. Is that accurate? Okay. So go to your box plot for this one. Okay. So no, okay, feel hopeless or sad within the last 2 weeks, right? Okay. Were there any items that asked about a longer duration? Because generally, when we think about depression, so like an acute depressive episode is generally 2 weeks or less, right? So, like, I don't know, you fail a test, you have a death in the family, you have a breakup. Of course, you're going to feel sad or hopeless or a lot of negative feelings. But if it lasts longer than 2 weeks, then it starts to become more of a concern around a clinical episode of depression rather than acute. So, were there any items that would tap into that longer term experience of depression?
like when I was kind of looking for the variable list, there wasn't like question that examined a longer duration regarding like the same concept.
Okay, so this sad or hopeless within the past 2 weeks was really like the best option for an item to look at.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Okay, keep going through slowly. All right, pause there a second. So this is just across all students, regardless of that depressive symptom, they're clearly not receiving as much sleep as as they need to. So really like 5, 6 hours. Okay. All right, keep going. Yep, 5, 6 hours. Okay. All right, pause there. So from this chart, it looks like those who experience depression were more likely to be in that 5 or 6 hours category, right? Do
yeah.
you have the sample size or the number of students that said yes to the depression item versus those that said no?
I think I have to look for the sample size.
You'd have to calculate it. Okay. So it's interesting, like here, it looks like many more students who have experienced depression are getting just 5 or 6 hours of sleep. But what I understand is that it was not a significant difference. Although if you look at the 5 hour bar for yes, it looks like it might be like 3,400 students. For no, maybe like 2,600. That seems like a big difference that would be significant. But maybe if you look at the average number of hours, you're not finding this significance. So maybe one thing you'd want to do is look at like chi-square analyses for the percent of students who experience depression who really get far less sleep than they should, so that 4, 5, 6 hour range, and the percent of students who don't experience depression who are in that 4, 5, 6 hour range, and see if there's any significant difference in a chi-square analysis. You didn't do that yet, right? And I just missed it, or
No, I didn't yet.
okay. All right, so I would recommend doing that, just because, visually it looks like you might see a significant difference if you framed it that way. I mean, teenagers, it's hard with kids because, like, when they're really young, they're supposed to get a lot more sleep. And then when they're teenagers, they're supposed to get a lot more. And then adults, it's like 7 to 8 hours. But really, like for anyone, 4, 5, and 6 hours is insufficient. So I might zone in on students who report 4 to 6 hours and see if it's greater, if the proportion of students is greater um, for those who also experience depression. So, Juan, is that making sense to you as well?
Yep, got it.
Okay. All right. Keep going. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay. All right. Keep going. Yeah.
This is
Next
the
slide. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Oh, this is the end.
Oh, that's the end. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I would take a look at that. Um, Also, were there any items that asked about anxiety? Like I know you're interested in depression. Um, but depression is interesting because some people like don't sleep at all, other people sleep way too much, right? Whereas anxiety is a bit more consistent where it like really interrupts your sleep so that you don't get enough sleep. So I wonder if there are any items that ask about like, do you worry? Have you really worried about things? Has it preoccupied your thoughts? Um, what else? Are you are you consumed with thoughts about, what if, what's going to happen in the future? Any sort of items like that might be indicative of anxiety. Um, I know we're towards the end of your research project, so if you don't want to do this, you can discuss that with someone. But I'm just thinking, like, I wonder if anxiety is another way to look at reasons for lack of sleep, at least related to mental health. It could be that students are just like on their screens too late, right? But it would be interesting to look at a similar item, but for people experiencing anxiety.
Research project is about relation between obesity, including BMI, and social behavior factors. So my after like the last lecture, I narrowed down my hypothesis and factors into race, income, insurance, nutrition, physical activity, and age. And then I predicted that Black population have higher obesity prevalence than due to socioeconomic challenges, and Asian population have like lower prevalence due to dietary and cultural differences. Also, nutrition factor are expected to have like a greater impact on obesity risk than physical activity. And the reasons I chose this data is nationally representative and rich and reliable data. And lastly, it's pretty recent, like 2021 to 2023. So these are just like short summary of what I was like writing in the working paper. So, but like, I think like we're focusing on like the test, like statistical test today, so I'm probably gonna just like skip it. And then so just like race, basically like first of all I did race versus BMI test, and then it shows the high it shows like a significant higher BMI for Black population than others, and also Asian has like significant lower BMI. So 6 is a this one is an Asian one, and then 4 is the Black population. So yeah, and also I did race versus income, and then it shows like this. So Black population has significant lower income than others, and like if you look at this, it's like the Black population has the lowest income in this data set, and then also you can see in the box plot, and also white and Asian race has significant higher income. And also I did like multiple regression. So Black population who has like lower income has significant higher BMI, like for the you can see like this line has like positive thingy. So yeah. And then
Sorry,
also
was that line number 3 that we were focused on?
no, it was 4.
Can you go back a
And
second?
then,
I just want to make sure.
and then this one is also
Oh, 4. So the one at the top that has a slight incline. Got it.
mhm. And also, I mean, I was not sure about like using insurance variables, but like I thought it can be really like related to income, like socioeconomic variables. So I added it. So basically, I did Wilcox rank test, which shows the significant differences in BMI between insured and uninsured people. And I also did insurance income versus income, and then higher income groups has more insurance group significantly, and also I did insurance versus race, and then if you look at this, it shows it significantly shows that white and Asian race has like higher like greater like population who gets injured, and then versus like Hispanic and Black population is like lower proportion of injured group. So and also There's like a lot of like nutritional factors, so it doesn't really show like specifically, but it has energy and other like fat, sugar, cholesterol, like things like that. So I tested like all this, so it could be really kind of like longer than others. So I'll just like do it really quickly. So basically the first one is energy. It shows significant um relationship, and protein, it also shows the significant relationship, but not carbohydrate, not total sugar, not dietary. Oh wait, it shows the significant relationship between um obesity prevalence, but not BMI. So then for fat, it shows the significant relationship for both BMI and obesity prevalence, which is like positive. So if gets like more fat, its BMI is like almost higher. And also fatty acids, saturated fatty acids, monounsaturated fatty acids, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and also cholesterol. It has higher BMI as cholesterol increases, and yeah. And then also I tested physical activity, which is none of them shows the significant relationship. So that could be emphasizing how nutritional factors like oops, how nutritional factors like impact more to the BMI than physical activity. And also this is just like race nutrition. So to like connect to like the how the race BMI differences to the culture and dietary factors. So this shows the Black and other racial groups has significantly different energy intakes, higher energy intakes, and Black population has significantly higher protein intake. White and Black population show significant different carbohydrate intake, but like in the last slide, there's like carbohydrate doesn't really impact to the BMI, so we probably cannot use this. And also yeah, there's like some of the BM total sugar intake differences between a lot of like racial groups that has Black population has the most highest intake. And also for dietary fiber, the Asian race has the highest intake. And for fat, total fat intake, also the Asian race has the highest intake. And for fatty acids, it shows the other racial group and Black population, Black race has higher total saturated fatty acids intake. And for polyunsaturated fatty acids intake, the Black race has the highest. And for cholesterol, also the Black population has the highest intake for cholesterol. And also I connected to race versus physical activity. Only Asian group shows the for moderate physical activity, only Asian group shows the significant difference in moderate physical activity compared to the reference groups. And for vigorous physical activity, there's no racial differences in vigorous activity at all. So, and then lastly, age group, like age factor, it significantly shows that as like the higher greater age has greater BMI, and I split it into like race groups. So for Mexican American, it significantly shows that as higher age has greater BMI, older age has greater BMI for other Hispanic, and also white race has higher BMI as older, also as well as black race and Asian race and other race too. Thank you.
All right, great. Very complicated variables, but it's great to see so many analyses. Um, I feel like I might have mentioned this to you before, but in case I didn't, the idea that BMI is being questioned as yeah, okay. So being questioned as a valid measure of health. So I would just in your paper acknowledge that, to say that we know that there's questions about whether this is the right measurement, but up until now, that's but what's being used to determine whether or not somebody is in an unhealthy weight category.
I think that one, I think we can like mention the protein like has like really like great like impact on BMI, but like it's not really like like the fat or something. So we can like I'm not sure, but like we can like connect to that one. I don't know.
Yeah. And when you do the analyses, so you're associating other variables with just BMI in general. So the higher the BMI,
Yeah. I mean, not all of them, but like but like almost all. I did I also made like the new column that has like obese. It's like categorical variable. So
yeah,
like higher than 30 for BMI
right.
is like obesity, and then 0 is not obese. And I'll just like yeah, for logistic regression, I did that.
That's great. Yeah, because just being in the overweight BMI category is where it gets complicated, right? So you could be muscular and
Mhm.
still be super healthy, right? Or even be, have some extra fat, but still have all numbers show that you're very healthy. It's generally that obese category, the 30 plus BMI. So that's great. And I would emphasize that point, that's why you chose to do that in your paper. The other question I wanted to ask, was there anything about sodium intake?
Uh, Wait, I've seen it. I've seen it. Yeah. Should we
You've seen
try
it.
add?
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that.
I'm just thinking like, so lower income people often resort to purchasing processed foods because they are cheaper than a lot of fresh foods, right? And processed foods tend to have much higher sodium. They also can have higher levels of fat and carbs, but that sodium, particularly if you're eating like fast food or highly processed snacks or meats or things like that, the sodium content is extremely high. Um, so I was just curious if that was present, and if so, like why you decided to leave that one out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't really think about that. So, like for the processed food, I thought like fat, like I focus on fat and sugar, things like that,
Yeah.
but I can totally add that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it would round it out, right?
Yeah.
Because you're right, fat, sugar, those are definitely indicators, but the sodium in processed food is also part of it.
Mm-hmm. And also, I had like one question that, like, if you like look at like my like statistical tests, like I focus on like race group like more than like other factors. Do you think that's good or
So I would frame it as race slash ethnicity, right? Because
yeah?
it's not really like skin tone. It's more like the cultural aspects associated with racial and
Mm,
ethnic groups,
yeah.
right? So, for instance, Asian groups tend to eat a lot of protein, healthy animal products like fish and rice and vegetables, right? And then some other ethnic groups, it's a lot of carbs, right? So they might tend to be overweight because of the cultural differences in their cuisines. So in your paper, I would just talk about it more as race slash ethnicity. So it's not focused on like just people of light skin versus dark skin versus something in between. It's more about their cultural backgrounds.
Mhm. Got it.
It was interesting about the insurance results too. I thought you'd see more of an effect there, but it was good to look at that as a variable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What other questions do you have for me?
Mm, so like my test, yeah, like like race slash ethnicity. Um, for like if you look at like not like nutritional or like insurance and income and also like physical activity, like things like that, like and also age. I like always like split it into like race stat slash ethnicity groups. Then should I like so then in my hypothesis, should I like mention like I focus on like race slash ethnicity more, and then I just like from that I just like um get like each factors or something. Cause
Um,
like
I'm not quite sure I'm understanding your question.
yeah, so like if you see hypothesis, I feel like I'm kind of like more like nutritional, and then like physical it's like more like other part, and then racial ethnic or ethnic differences is like this second part is like that. But like should I like change something that racial and ethnic differences first, and then like just like from that nutritional factors blah blah blah, like nutrition factors is like like connected to racial and also others, age, income, insurance, like those like that.
So I like that. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, 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 go for it.
I like the nutritional factors as a predictor of obesity.
Mhm.
But of course, your sociodemographics are going to influence the nutritional factors, right? Um, so the fact that you looked at like race and income, like the intersection of factors, is something I would definitely emphasize because it's not just like, sometimes we get into trouble when we say like, oh, well, Black people have greater BMI, right? But it's really about a lot of them have low incomes. They might not have access to healthy foods because of food deserts. it's a lot of these structural racism issues that are at play. And so when you do those intersectional analyses that you're doing, that's when you can tell that story, right? This is not a race issue. This is more like a place issue. Like where are you growing up? What do you have access to? What kind of income or insurance do you have access to? And that combination is what is predicting your nutrition, which then contributes to likelihood of obesity, right? And I think we talked about this before, like place versus race, right? Even low income whites, if they don't have access to healthy foods or they don't have sufficient income, that's when you tend to see more obese white populations. So I would really highlight your intersectional analyses because I think that's a real strength of your study, and talk about that in detail in your discussion section.